And we're back to finish off Mystical Ninja starring Fernandez. I ended the previous part with us having revived Sasuke after completing the game's second dungeon. Sasuke is also pretty fun by just having the same cut in half effect on smaller enemies that Yae has. First I returned to Kurashiki and Bizen to use Sasuke's bombs on the cracked walls to destroy them. One of them gets me a golden fortune doll for an extra heart to my health, the other one gets me a silver fortune doll. Opposite the door leading to Izumo is a door to the road from Aki to Nagato. Following the road takes me to a bridge, but as I reach it I jump off it to the north and go up this hill, then along the long narrow path at the top, at one point having to use the mini Ebisu to get across. At the end is my 24th silver fortune doll for even more health. I jump into the water and swim all the way to this red gate, then ride the moving platform there up to reach another silver fortune doll on top. I return to Izumo and go through the door past the coffee shop. This leads to Hagi, which is a pretty nothing area with a left and right fork. I go right and through the door to Akiyoshi-dai. Got a new enemy here with these kites that will try and fly into me. I make my way across this huge field to the northeast, where I can go through this fence and then following the long path down to another door into this cave, Shuhudo. There isn't much to traverse in this area, it's just a slightly curved path to a cracked wall at the end. I blow it up and go through to reach the game's third dungeon, the Festival Temple Castle. This was as far as I got in my previous playthrough attempt over a decade and a half ago. I either had something else to do or just didn't feel like going through another full dungeon already and couldn't save without a control pack. To start with, I ignore the stairs right in front of me and go through the gap in the fence to the left and then through another one going under the building, following the path to a door at the end. I go out through another gap in a fence and have to fight bamboo robots shooting cannonballs while avoiding giant rolling stones and jumping some gaps to the next door. In this room I swim around the spinning spiked balls to reach the moving platforms and climb them to find the dungeon's Mr. Elephant to get the map. Checking it out I can see that the castle is separated into the cardinal directions instead of by floor like the others, and I'm starting off in the east. I drop down and go through the next door. Right in front of me is a locked door, but first I climb a ladder next to it and climb around the outside of the room to reach another silver fortune doll. I then drop down and take a door left from the one I entered through. This puts me in the southern quadrant around this huge temple in the middle. I get empty suits of armour attacking me, another gold locked door to the right, and a long path left to the door I need next. It puts me inside the temple with a large set of stairs opposite me. There's a huge tank to the side, but a few kunai attacks takes those out. I climb the stairs and go through the door to find more stairs. These ones lower as my weight presses down on one end, but it's slow enough to not be a problem. I go right and lower the steps on that end to raise the opposite end and reach the door there. I follow the next corridor to the next room with moving platforms over a pit. Rather than cross to the other side, in the middle at the right from where I entered is another door I can reach. This finally gets me my first silver key about 10 minutes after entering the dungeon. Back in the previous room I cross over to the other side of the gap and through the door there. I go up the stairs here but they just lead to some dumplings and a door back to the weighted stairs room. But before I go back and open the locked door, I return to the room with the pit again and climb this ladder I missed. The door up there takes me to a catwalk above the side corridors. Going right takes me to a silver fortune doll. Now I can go back to the first locked door I found and open it. In this next room I can go left or right. I choose to go left, skip the first door I find and go through the red one all the way at the end. It's around here that the music changes too, like the previous dungeons. In this room I follow the path all the way to the end to reach a new item, the kunai of severe cold for Sasuke. Using these can douse flames or cool hot surfaces. It can also be charged to throw 3 kunai at once. There's another path on the opposite side of this room, but I won't be able to reach it until later in the game. I go back the way I came and ignore all the other doors here for now, instead returning to the start of the dungeon. I finally go up those stairs in front of the entrance. I go to the right and avoid the crushers to reach another door. This room has burning hot platforms moving around, so I use Sasuke's new weapon to cool them and cross the gap and go through the door at the other end. I ignore the burning platform in the next room and go through another door and then another. This puts me higher up in the Rolling Stone room. Going left from the door I can jump down at the end to find a golden fortune doll. I go back 2 rooms to cool the platforms I skipped and get climbing a series of hot platforms to reach the next door at the top. This room has fox masks that breathe fire, but I just quickly run past them all to another door. Up here I cool another platform to reach the gold key for that other locked door in the southern quadrant. But first I return to the room past the first door I unlocked, which is the western quadrant by the way, and go through the door to the left I skipped earlier. This corridor has me dodging a lot of falling barrels to reach the next door. The room it leads to has a pool of water separating 3 more doors. But in the water are these drums I can bounce on, and so I use one to reach the door to the right. It takes me to Mr. Arrow so I can see where the boss is. Back in that room I bounce across to the opposite side and take the right door. Then I just turn a corner to find another. There's an item in here and some burning platforms. Ignore the platforms, just jump onto the back wall and then over the fence to reach an optional weapon, the meat saw hammer for Ebisumaru. Using it will turn any enemy drop into a dumpling to restore health. I then use the platform on the left to reach the door there. In here I can climb the barrels to jump the fence for a quick shortcut back to the main room of the western area. From there I can go all the way to the right to climb the ladder onto this roof and run all the way around the other end to reach another ladder. This one takes me to another of the few free surprise packs for an extra life. Then it's finally back to the southern quadrant to use that gold key. The room it leads to is a straightforward one, running up slopes and swimming to reach the next door. It takes me to this huge room with these moving fish-shaped platforms moving up and down. There's a few of them, along with a few ladders between them, and eventually I reach the top where there's a door. But first there's one more platform I can ride up even higher to find my 28th Silver Fortune doll and reach 3/4 of the game's maximum health. Then I go through the door. This next room is just a simple straight line to get inside this house. In here there's a sign giving me a hint of what's coming, and I drop down to reach the dungeon boss, the ghost robot Tsurami. She'll lunge at me and then get throwing these discs at me. I just have to run around the circular arena to avoid them. After every few throws she'll throw some red discs. These ones I can hit to send them back to damage her. It can be a bit tricky to get the timing right as I fail the first time and get hit. Then the second time I hit them, but late enough that I also take damage. And so I just keep that up until I do enough hits to kick off phase 2. She'll start throwing several green discs at once at rapid speed, ending on 2 slower red ones as normal. Then eventually she'll start throwing the green ones all over the place instead of just aiming for me. Overall, if I had to choose a least favourite section of the game, it's this dungeon. It isn't bad at all, but I just preferred everything else in the game. I like the look of the other dungeons more, and while it isn't actually that long, this boss felt like it went on forever at the time. But in the end, I destroy the boss and she drops my next mysterious item, the Miracle Star. The third of the Peach Mountain Shoguns appears, Sharon, who drops that without the robot's power, they can no longer block, or block I guess, the passage to Kyushu. When Yae asks why they're even doing that, Sharon responds as if being interrogated. That's when the mystery woman from the opening introduces herself. After a bit of back and forth, through song she reveals her name to be Kitty Lily. Goemon tries to provoke her into a fight instead of hiding behind a hologram, but she says she's too famous for that as she'd be swamped by her fans. After Goemon says he's never even heard of her, she says that soon enough they'll want to see her on stage every day. She even lets them know that Kyushu has already become the stage they were searching for. Just before Sharon leaves, we also learn that Lily constantly sends the Shoguns out for minor errands and takes forever to pay them back. The two then leave and we know that our next destination is Kyushu. After returning to Akiyoshi-dai, I go back up the path I took to Shuhodo and just follow the mountain to the right to reach a door leading to the gateway viewpoint. As I follow the path, Goemon is stopped by Omitsu. She's also travelling to Kyushu for a food delivery, all the way from Oedo town. She says that their business has been featured in a magazine and now they're getting endless phone calls. No one tries to stop her when she continues towards Kyushu, as they're just in shock that after all the effort and detours they've had to take to get here, Omitsu just managed to walk it alone with no trouble. They get heading towards Kyushu themselves, but as soon as Goemon shouts to Omitsu that it's too dangerous, it's too late, as she's already crossed the bridge. A weird glow appears over the sky, and the entire landmass containing Kyushu is stolen up into the glow before both disappear. Goemon is displeased that the aliens have stolen his girlfriend, while everyone else is more bothered by all of Kyushu being gone. At this point we're at a dead end, as no one has any idea what to do next until Yae suggests we just cheat and ask the fortune teller. So I have Koryuta take me back to Fogipoke Village. This place is in much higher spirits with more upbeat music now their kidnapped children have been returned to them. The kids mention how the Shoguns were trying to teach them how to dance. At least one kid preferred that situation over being made to work the farm now that he's home. My main reason for coming here is this guy near the door to Compira Mountain, spawned by pressing all C buttons, A and B at once on this screen. He sells some decorations for Goemon's house, 400 ryo for a Daruma doll, 600 ryo for a notice board, and 800 ryo for a replica of the robot doll enemy. I'm using a guide to make sure I don't miss items, and so I don't need to see Plasma Man to know what to do next. I fly back to Oedo town, and in Goemon's house I can see the decorations I bought. The Lord and Princess Yuki are also staying in this house while Oedo Castle stays transformed. That wasn't why I came back though. If you remember, at the start of the game we were told that Mokube moved out of one of the houses opposite Goemon's and the new tenant hadn't moved in yet. Well, now they have. The house has been converted into the muscle training gym. The owner says that after being done here I'll be able to move metal boxes. We've only seen one of those so far, all the way back in Musashi. All I have to do is pass this minigame. I'm surrounded by holes and several Oyakatas are rising from them towards these balloons. If they reach a balloon, it will pop. I have 99 seconds to keep all my balloons intact by throwing metal boxes at them. It's quite easy actually, just throw 2 or 3 boxes at one, move to the next one and do the same. It should just be enough and I get it on my second try after messing up the first. Completing the challenge against Goemon the sudden impact skill. So I return to Musashi and that metal box to the left of the entrance to try it out. It costs 10 ryo to use and gives Goemon Super Saiyan hair. I can now push that box aside and reach the door it was keeping me from. It takes me into the tunnel to the northeast one. Right in front of me are some moving platforms going off to the left of this hole that takes me to the tunnel to the northeast too. I climb the nearby ladder and jump across even more platforms to reach a long tunnel leading to another area where I can hit a switch to create more platforms and then drop down for another silver fortune doll. I go around the nearby tunnel to end up at the start and backtrack to where I dropped from, and then cross those new platforms I created to reach the door leading outside into Mutsu. There's a fork right away, but I just go straight forward to the door opposite where I entered. This takes me to Festival Village. I just love the whole Mutsu area. If you've watched certain other videos of mine, you should know by now that I love nighttime snowy areas in games, especially older ones. An old man on this first screen lets me know of a circle of stone pillars to the north. At the northern end I can talk to this guy who turns out to be Mokube's brother, saying that Mokube has developed his skills even further. That's an easily missed hint for something soon, and I'm not sure if there are any others. I then turn around and go through the door in the centre east of the screen. It leads to an area with a big hot spring. The first woman I speak to says that swimming up the waterfall of Kegon is said to turn one into a mermaid. The man I speak to next says that to get there I have to exit the village from the south and then turn right and go through the Uzen tunnel. A kid says that this place holds a festival every day of the year except for New Year's Day. That sounds unbelievably exhausting. In one of the houses, a guy says that UFOs are often seen over the stone circles of Ugo. Going through the other door here leads to the area containing the village's drum of the festival. This place is just here for flavour, but we do get to learn that the main drummer is haunted by the time he once tried to hit a dog. I return to the first screen and go through the northern door by Mokube's brother. On this screen, a woman says that the main route on Mount Fear is now blocked by ice, but there's an alternate route around it using a ladder. I go through the next door to end up at Mount Fear. Going to the left I can find this slope, but it's blocked. So I play the flute to fly back to Kai Highway's coffee shop and return to Mount Fuji. I climb all the way back to Mokube's house at the top and ask him to improve our weapons. Not only does he do so, he does it for free. This increases every character's weapons to level 2, more strength and range for all of them, and Yaya can now spin her sword to act as a shield. I return to Mount Fear and my new weapons can destroy the huge rock. What follows is a long sequence of ladders and slopes until I reach the house at the top. Inside lives a witch. She knows we're here because we're stuck on what to do next, as living here for 120 years has taught her how to face read a person's entire life story. She says she can see an old man with a strange look in a very dark place. The Bisumaru figures it must be the wise old man. She can use her powers to call him for 300 ryo. We pay and she manages to show a vision of the wise old man, presumably his spirit considering he was blown up. He has no idea where he is and Goemon tells him they want to save Kyushu but have no idea where to start. He tells them that Kyushu is floating out in space and that the way to get out there is to collect the miracle items from the Flake Gang leaders, then take them to the Stone Circle in Ugo. We already have 3 and the wise man knows that there is only 1 left to get then. Back outside I can just run right down the slope to get back to the entrance of this area. I go back through Festival Village and leave through the southern entrance back into the first Mutsu screen, then take that fork in the path I skipped earlier to reach a door into the Uzen tunnel. This place is slightly more complex than the other tunnels we've seen so far. Once I cross the first bridge in here, I drop down into the water and swim southeast to a fork. I then turn west to find a silver fortune doll. I climb up all the nearby ladders and accidentally end up leaving the way I came. I go back in and with the map on it's an easy journey south to the exit to the waterfall of Kegon in Nikko. I have to inspect the sign if I want to take the Legend of the Mermaid challenge. I have to mash the A button to swim up to the top of the waterfall within the time limit. I have 50 seconds and also have to steer to avoid being hit by the falling Oyakatas. I get hit a couple times on the way to the top, but the worst part was being right at the top, as they keep on spawning right above me with no way to avoid them. But I still get it with 24 seconds remaining. This grants Yae the ability to transform into a mermaid while in water, letting me finally swim underwater. First thing I do with this new skill is jump in the water here and swim to the east to find a hole leading to a tunnel that takes me to a golden fortune doll. I've opened up a few more items to collect, so next I return to Yamato. I drop down into the water in the southeast near the Turtle Shrine entrance and swim through another hole to find a silver fortune doll. Next is in the basement of the Ghost Toys castle with the shogi tiles. Underwater here is a cage containing my 30-second silver fortune doll. Just 3 hearts to go for max health. Then in Festival Village I swim under the hot spring and into another tunnel to find a hidden shop on the other side. I don't care about the shop, but the silver fortune doll right next to it. With that item collection done, I return to Mount Fear and run past the slope going up it to find another door taking me to the Mutsu shoreline. A sign next to the water says that there's a gate under there requiring the pressing of the red button to open. But first I just check out this door to the north. It leads to the Ugo Stone Circle. Can't do anything here, so it's into that water. I swim about until I find the red button and then fail several attempts at dashing into it to press it. I can then swim through the gate I opened, which leads out into the Japan Sea. This place can be pretty confusing to navigate, so I'm thankful for the minimap. I start by going all the way north to find a surprise pack. From that spot I then go all the way south to find another silver fortune doll. From there I swim under a gap in the ice wall nearby to find a sunken ship I swim inside. This is the Gourmet Submarine Castle, the game's 4th dungeon. I swim up and go forward, which tricks me into being ejected back outside. So next time when I swim up I turn around and dash against the current, avoiding spiked mines until I reach another hole in the ceiling I can swim through. Once I reach the top I'm out of the water and taking a long lift ride up. Up here we see the reason for this place's name, with a table that has giant sushi on it. I jump up the floating ones to find the Mr. Elephant of this dungeon. I then drop down and go through the door right next to it. Here I have to jump the platforms over a burning floor to reach 2 doors, taking the left one. The next one has moving platforms leading to a door on the left and the right. The one on the left is locked and so I go right. The next room then has me chain piping across to the next. Here I go up the ramp to find giant moving plates acting as platforms, with pieces of robot sushi on some of them. I cross them to reach the silver key at the end. I then backtrack 2 rooms and unlock the door at the opposite end. This one is filled with giant balls I can climb to reach the Mr. Arrow. Right next to them is a lift going down. The water here is red, but it's not dangerous, nor is the food floating around it as I swim to the door down here. In the next room I just have to swim around to the door on the other side. There's another silver key in the corner opposite from where I entered, with the door it unlocks not being far away either. I swim to the surface of the water, go up the little ramp, and chain to the other end to find just a giant pudding surrounded by dumplings. Instead I have to swim to the opposite side of the room and drop down to the door there. This room has a burning floor and over it, conveyors and floating platforms. Going in a straight line from where I entered gets me a silver key, with the door it unlocks being in the corner opposite from where I entered. I get a new enemy in here, a crab walking around wearing a bowl. Across from the entrance is another locked door, so I climb up the ladder to the left to grab a gold key. There's also a silver locked door in a corner, but it'll have to wait as I unlock the gold door. This room grants me a weapon for Yae, the Yae Bazooka. I don't think I should have to explain this one. The silver key I need is also here. I try the bazooka, but I don't find it that useful compared to the other money-using projectiles, so I use the key to unlock that door in the corner. This room is more water, so I swim down to the door at the bottom. I swim to the surface in the next room and ride the lift there up. A sign up here tells me to use Abisamaru's camera to reveal the hidden route, but first I drop back down and swim to this tiny hole I need the mini Ibisu skill for. Going through a couple takes me higher up in the room with the crab ball, and I run around to the end to find another surprise pack. Back to the section I abandoned, I use the camera and reveal the hidden floors, jumping across several giant fish dishes to reach the door at the end. There's 2 giant robot chefs in here that fight similar to the large robot dolls. Taking them both out gets me a silver key and I go through the other door in here. Right next to me is a door requiring a diamond key, so I jump in this nearby moving ball and ride it along to the middle, where I jump in the ball to the left and ride it to the 2 doors there, only one being unlocked. There's 2 more doors in here and I take the one opposite the one I entered through. The dolls with cannons have been powered up and their shots now create several explosions in a row. I climb these crates onto the wall and run all the way around to find another surprise pack. I haven't died once yet, by the way. The door underneath it takes me back to the room I needed to use the camera in, so I go back to the room with the locked doors, remembering I already have a silver key and unlock the one opposite where I returned from. In here I'm once again using the camera to reveal hidden paths to the diamond key. I can now unlock its door, leading to a lift I can ride up. Up here the camera screws me a bit and makes it very difficult to just get on this narrow catwalk, but when I do get on, it's just a straight line to the next door. In here I meet the last of the Peach Mountain Shoguns, Poron. He thinks we made it this far out of being a huge fan of his. Abisamaru says that they're just here for the miracle item, but Poron claims to have lost it somewhere in Zazen Town back when he was in Kansai on vacation. Yae says they should get straight back to Zazen Town then, but Lily interrupts. And after she's done interrupting them, Dancing joins in as well to invite Goemon to hell, pissing off Lilith for interrupting. He just wanted to appear because he's been in very few scenes so far. They then argue, especially over Dancing's atrocious joke. Watching all this, Poron asks what he should be doing, to which Dancing tells him to use the device. Said device turns out to be a time bomb and Poron flees. There's no time to escape on foot, and so the only choice left is to use a Triton shell and have Impact bail them out, getting to watch this entire scene again. By the way, at the end you can use a stick to spin and jiggle his head. This time the skating part has Impact running through the sea, smashing houses, mountains, huge barrels and flying dioramas. When I was younger and looking up guides just to get an idea of what the rest of the game was like, I remember being surprised that there are only 3 times in the game where you call Impact. I just always assumed he'd be a much bigger presence in the game. Eventually I reach the end and I meet the dungeon boss, Tai Samba 2. He starts by swimming around and while jumping out of the water I get him with the chain pipe. By this point I'd looked up Impact's move list, but first time I pull off a rapid punch with C up, C down, C up and A too slowly and he gets away. He spits a single projectile at me and since I chain him right away I can't dodge it. On the third time chaining him I actually pull the move off. It's pretty satisfying with a load of hits and ends with a big kick, dealing a lot of damage. Another of Taisanba's attacks is to drop into the water and rise up right in front of me for a surprise hit. I try out the mouth laser. When the bar in the bottom middle is full, pressing the C buttons in a clockwise circle and then Z will have Impact fire a massive beam. But I miss first time. Once I get him to below 1200 health, he'll go underwater and Impact will follow. He tries to ram me with his head but I punch him down first. I get another rapid punch in and he tries a huge twister attack by spinning really fast. Thankfully it takes so long to get out and he doesn't move so I can finally hit him with the mouth laser. A nice 400 damage in one there. Then I pull him in for another rapid punch to finish him off. I like that whole section. The weird mix of submarine and giant food level made it more memorable than the previous dungeon and more Impact is always appreciated, especially now I know more moves. Impact drops us off and leaves to finish his next film in France. Since Poron told us where he lost it, I warp straight back to Zazen Town, but since we have no idea where to start, I ask Benkei if he has it in his collection. He doesn't but believes he may have it, a collector with a collection even bigger than his, Kihachi, who lives in the town's centre pond. I've been here before, I got a fortune doll here. I stand on the rock in the front of the pond and Kihachi reveals himself, turns out he's a Kappa. We ask him if he picked up anything strange lately, and he assumes we mean an object he picked up a few days ago. Goemon asks for it, but Kihachi wants something in return. His first request is impossible, and when Yae asks again, he finds himself unable to turn down the request of the woman he finds cute. So he changes his own request to simply bringing him his favourite food, although he won't tell us what it is. But if I talk to him a second time, he'll just straight up tell me it's cucumber, and if I do it again, he specifies the cucumber that the priest's son makes. So I head over to the Golden Temple and ask the priest where his son is. His son has gone to watch the big sacred fire at Mount Nyoigatake, but reaching him won't be that simple, as only one who can jump huge heights will be able to find him. He tells me that there's a training gym behind a locked door in Bizen and gives me the key. I passed this door when I first entered Bizen last time, but now I can get inside. The man inside offers the training for Sasuke. It's a huge platforming challenge up this pole with a 99-second time limit. First is simple platforms, some receding into the pole, then up a ramp to platforms moving around it and these triangular bits put there to push me off if I collide with them. But when I reach the next ramp I keep messing up, usually pressing jump too late and sliding off. I keep making the same mistake and run out of time. But I make it next time after a final section with many moving platforms. With that I now have Sasuke's flying spell and each spell for all 4 characters. With my new super jump I've opened up a couple more items to collect as well. First I return to Festival Temple Castle and in the room where I found Sasuke's kunai of severe cold, I can jump over the fence keeping me in and reach this area on the other side. I climb the ladder at the end up to this roof and at the other end from there use the super jump to reach a silver fortune doll. Back in Zazen Town, while around this point in the river, I can super jump through a hole and find my 36th silver fortune doll for more health. Next to the door leading to the Golden Temple is one last door I haven't talked about yet. It takes me to this bridge going up to another door that takes me to Mount Nyoigatake. I need the super jump to reach this moving platform that takes me to the priest's son. I ask him for the cucumber, but it's going to cost me 800 ryo, and I just about have enough. I gain the quality cucumber and return to Kihachi for the trade, obtaining the miracle snow. And that's all 4 miracle items obtained. I also made sure to get the surprise pack hidden behind the key coffee shop first. But after double checking that I wasn't missing anything else, it's now time to return to the stone circle in Ugo. I stand on the altar and offer all 4 items to open the path into space. The Pemo Pemo god speaks to me and warns me that this is a point of no return. Once I set off into space to save Kyushu, I can't come back. I'm not sure why they even put a point of no return in this game, but I've done everything I can down here anyway. I'm shot up into the sky and placed in the game's final dungeon, the gorgeous musical castle. To start with, I have guys in Oni masks throwing hammers at me. The door right in front of me is locked, so I go through the one left of it. The next room is small and I go through the next door. It leads to a room filled with catwalks. But first I drop down to the bottom and go through the door there. It takes me to a room where I'm running up a ramp while jumping gaps and avoiding huge blades sliding down towards me. The door at the top takes me to a flatter room where the blades are coming from both walls at differing heights, making them harder to dodge. The door at the other end then lets me drop back down into the room before the catwalk so I can try them again. This time I jump across them and make my way up the screen to find another locked door. Just a bit past it I can platform to find a silver key that unlocks it. The room behind it has a lava floor with big moving fans as platforms to cross it with. In the opposite corner is the gold key I was looking for. I return to the dungeon's first room and use it to unlock the door there. This next room has a higher level, but I can't reach it just yet and go through the next door. It leads to more fan platforms leading to a locked door, so instead I drop down the platforms and grab a Silver Fortune doll off to the side. I then drop all the way to the bottom to find another door. The water here looks like it may damage you, but it's actually just a moving stage decoration. Nothing to do here but go through the next door. The room it leads to sees me bouncing up a few drums to reach the next door at the top. This puts me in the higher up section of the room a few screens back. I cross the platforms to find the Mr. Elephant and then use sudden impact to push down the box so I can chain across to the gold key. With it I can get to the door across the fan platforms and unlock it. Right in front of me is a ramp down to another locked door. First I get on this stage behind it for another Silver Fortune doll. Also on this stage is a small hole to use the mini Ibisu on. It takes me into the room with the gold key I need, so I use it to unlock the door. It takes me to some more hammer guys in between me and the next door. This next room has several rotating and moving blocks as platforms. I have to keep climbing them with the use of Sasuke's super jump to reach a diamond key. I return to the room with the stage and climb the ladder next to it. On the opposite side at the top I hit a switch to lower some stairs leading to the door requiring the diamond key. It takes me to a higher up section of the room I found my last gold key. Here I have to run against the stage water while avoiding decorative waves to get to the next door. There's a large block in here and a switch next to it that turns said block into several platforms going up. I get to the top and swim across the water to find the game's final Mr. Arrow. The door is next to it, but first there's a Silver Fortune doll off to the side on a platform requiring the super jump. I found this one really tricky to get to, and it took a couple minutes before I got the right angle for Sasuke to grab the ledge so I could get it. With that I can finally go through the door, which takes me outside. This is Sogen Town, part of Kyushu. I go through the gate and find these new spinning top dolls that on death can release these fawned roses that can attach to you and cause damage over time. Soon after I find a shop I can enter. The people inside don't seem too fussed about being abducted. One woman has even been watching the Peach Mountain show twice a day, every day. Going back outside and following the path some more takes me to an inn. More people are turning out to be fans of the Peach Mountain Shoguns. Back outside I follow the path once again to find another shop. Omisu is in here, still holding that same tray of dumplings. Goemon is so happy to see her he screams her name in her face. She's not that bothered by the whole experience. After talking for a bit, Ebisamaru wonders where Dancing and Lily are, and Omisu says she heard they were behind the doors nearby. But the door is rigid and can't be opened easily. She knows someone who can help though and says he's at the restaurant. The restaurant is just next door. The guy Omitsu was talking about turns out to be the wise old man. Turns out he wasn't killed when Baron blew up his house in Iga. We get no answer on whose spirit the witch called either. He was actually kidnapped first and they bribed him into giving them mechanical parts and robots in exchange for car magazines and posters, actually just porn. Goemon is unimpressed and Wise Man tries to backpedal and say the porn was forced upon him despite his best attempts to resist. But this does mean he's responsible for all the robots we've been fighting throughout the game. When Goemon asks why they blew up his house then, this is the first he's heard of it. Of course his lifelong porn collection being destroyed is what angers him most. It does bring up the question of why they did blow up his house, but that doesn't get answered. But the wise man is so angry he takes everyone's weapons and powers them all up to the strongest forms, meaning I can now destroy the door Omitsu mentioned. With that done, I run past the shop and find these weapons can now destroy even large enemies in one swing. I smash through the door and go through another to enter the second half of the gorgeous musical castle. First up there are these dancing pairs of legs I can cut up. They don't even try defending themselves. There's a locked door in front of me so I go up the stairs to the right and ignore the doors for now, instead jumping into the painting. In this hidden room is the final golden fortune doll in the game, just the one silver one left now. I go back and take the door right of the entrance. In here I jump across these triangular platforms to the next room. But it just leads to a slope I can't go up, so instead I return to the first room and go through the left door. I cross more platforms to reach two more doors. I take the one to the front to a room filled with conveyors. I jump across them and make my way to a switch that brings out a floor below the next door so that I can super jump to it. In this room I run across the wall of the lava to find another switch that creates another floor under another door to let me through. Next is just a long corridor to the next room. I hit another switch that activates a lift that takes me all the way to the top where the diamond key is waiting. There's also more stairs to another door up here. On the opposite end is the top of the slope I mentioned a little earlier, so it's back to the first room and unlocking that door. Then in the next room it's a straight line to the next door. This next room has a fork halfway through. Going straight and following that path all the way takes me to the 40th and final Silver Fortune doll in the game, granting me both maximum health and something extra once I beat the game. That's one of the reasons why I don't like there being a point of no return at this point. Didn't get all the fortune dolls beforehand? Fuck you, start the game again. But anyway, the side path of the fork takes me to the next door. The room it leads to has this huge rotating tunnel I have to run through with random holes in it. It's easier though, and I reach the ladder at the end leading to the next door. This takes me into the Peach Mountain main hall. I approach the stage in the middle to be greeted by Dancing and Lily. At first it seems like they're preparing to take the team on together, but it turns out their intention is to turn the party into their fans, and so their song, Gorgeous My Stage, starts. It's all over the top with the robot dolls taking part and the Flake Gang leaders providing backing vocals. It's pretty short though, and when it's done, Goemon doesn't know how to react, while Ebisumaru was into it and feels he may be turning into a fan. Meanwhile, Yae and Sasuke point out that Dancing and Lily have taken off and the castle starts shaking, another bomb having been set off. Once again, the only way of escape is to use a Triton shell and have Impact pick us up. This time, the final Impact sequence starts us off in a long tunnel, taking on all sorts of mechanical weapons and smashing down walls, needing to jump over lasers. I've already mentioned being surprised that there only being 3 Impact sequences, but another surprise on top of that is how spaced out they are. The first one is really early on in the game, and then nothing until right at the end where the last 2 are very close together. There's not much to say about these parts, and once we reach the end, Impact jumps out into space. And out in space, we finally get to take on that peach-shaped UFO we saw in the opening, the one that hit Oedo Castle. This is the Great Peach Mountain battleship Balbera. This Impact fight is different from the others. The game moves Impact around for me and I have to take out individual parts of the ship. It starts by releasing smaller flying peaches and then follows it up with green laser balls I can punch or shoot out. It has these 6 cannons that each fire spiked bombs I can punch to gain more yo. With the chain pipe I take out the red core to remove the lasers and then get working on the cannons. But Impact drifts down to the side where this leaf turns around to reveal 3 cannons of its own that each fire coloured balls I can punch for Ryo. I drift back to the middle and take out 2 cannons before moving to the opposite leaf which does the same thing, making sure to get some shots on it before it stops firing. I take out the 3rd cannon as I move back to the left leaf and destroy it, noticing I've gone down and am getting shot at by the lower cannons. I get some shots back in as I move back up and take out a 4th cannon. The peach then opens up to reveal more smaller peaches, giving the chance to shoot inside and cause actual damage that lowers the enemy health. But it's 5 damage per shot and I only deal 35 damage before it closes. I take out a 5th cannon and then the other leaf. I destroy the final cannon on the peach, just leaving the segment below which also doesn't last much longer. Only the peach remains now, and to make it open I have to destroy all the smaller ones to prompt it to release more. This is the perfect chance to use the mouth laser, but aiming is a bit tricky due to Impact always drifting. So by the time I've started charging the laser, I've moved just out of range and missed the middle. And it keeps happening. My 2nd and 3rd successful attempts at firing the laser miss as well for the same reason. And then on my 4th try it closes before I fire. So instead I just do it the slow way, by building up Ryo from punching the small peach's cannonballs and then unloading when it opens. The other attempts at the laser also fail and I eventually take out the ship. But Dancing and Lily are still alive, as they had a mech ready inside that ship. The true final boss, D'Etoile. D'Etoile moves around the screen faster than any other boss while firing out those cannonballs, meaning missing a chain pipe is an almost guaranteed punish. But my main strategy is pretty much the same as it was for Tai Samba, chain it in and then rapid punch. But D'Etoile can also put a shield up and has a very fast tail attack that's tough to react to, especially when not on the side of the screen you're looking at. Plus ramming into me with the shield, which tends to happen when I'm missing with the chain pipe again. The chain pipe is also blocked by said shield. Sounds obvious but I still tried it anyway. In the end I get my first and only death in this entire playthrough. The 2nd attempt goes a lot smoother, mainly due to luck. Most of my chain pipes connect as D'Etoile just doesn't try to dodge them as much. And it also just keeps lowering down right in front of me to make it easier to grab. When at around 800 health, it starts charging this large meteor attack, but using the mouth laser renders it useless and gets a ton of damage in. It's easy to connect with here since D'Etoile is stationary for so long. After that, just a couple more chains and rapid punches is enough to take it down. The 2 can't believe they've lost, but Dancing warns that as long as they have the instant stage beam, they can still win. Unfortunately for them, Impact hits them with 1 more laser, destroying D'Etoile and sending Dancing and Lily screaming off into space. Possibly to their death, I don't know. With their enemies defeated, the team fly Impact home. With Japan at peace, they wonder how to get Kyushu back down from space. They don't have to worry as it crashed back down into place with no horrific side effects. Yae reasons that the bomb in the castle brought it back down. Sasuke says they need to pick up Amitsu and the wise old man. But Goemon gets distracted by a horde of screaming women approaching them. Goemon figures they're fans of his for them being the heroes who saved Japan. Goemon and Ebisumaru can't wait for their adoration, but Yae doesn't think that's the case. And she's right. These are all fans of Dancing and Lily, and they want Goemon's head for preventing them from ever being able to see their show. And the game ends there and cuts to the credits before we can see the bloodbath. After the credits, for collecting every fortune doll, I've unlocked the consecutive fighting large boss mode. Basically a boss rush of the 4 Impact bosses, where I must clear all 4 on 1 life with no healing between fights. Knowing the full moveset means that Kashiwagi just gets completely destroyed, but the problem is I lose over half my health on Tai Samba, and then I finish Balbera with just 30 health left, meaning D'Etoile finishes me. Then on my second attempt I finish Balbera with 220 health left, but this time, of all places, is where I get my only game crash of this playthrough. I make it back to D'Etoile with the exact same health and defeat it this time. This grants me a cheesy congratulations screen. I think it may add the last few songs of a sound test, but don't quote me on that. And that's Mystical Ninja starring Goemon. I know I've said in several videos now how satisfying it has been to go back to an old game from my youth and get closure by finishing it, but none compared to this time. Those other games were a case of my own skill keeping me away from the rest of the game, but in this case it was just not owning the right stuff. This is such a fun game, and being able to play it without the knowledge all my progress would be lost when I switched it off made me enjoy it even more. The only real issue I had while playing the game was the camera at times, and even then it was quite rare to give me problems compared to other games of its time. It had a big world for the N64, but not too big that it was boring to traverse, just long enough to appreciate the environment and its music before you move on. And that soundtrack. I've nowhere near played most of the N64 games, but I feel confident in saying this game's soundtrack would be in the top 10. I loved the overall tone of the game and just how out there it was, with all the anachronisms ranging from giant robots to people having TV and phones centuries too early. Some of the actual jokes were hit and miss, but since making the first video I did learn that the original Japanese script sometimes used quite dated insults that have since started to fall out of favour, and at least one I believe would be considered a slur today. I don't speak Japanese and don't know everything, but that seems to be the gist from the admittedly little I've read. But with that in mind, I'd gladly take the naff localised jokes over actual hateful language. I always felt it a shame that so few games from this series made it out of Japan. Just 5 games when they were new, with one each not coming to PAL or North American territories. The original arcade game has since been made available to make 6, but that's still a huge amount just not released outside Japan. I guess they were worried people may find them too Japanese, and I can't speak for everyone, but that's what made this game stand out from the rest of the N64 library I tried at the time. I'd like to try out some more games. I have one of the Game Boy games, a Wii U download of Legend of the Mystical Ninja, and I could download the Arcade Archives version of the original if I want. Sadly, this game's sequel is out of my price range for a PAL copy. I almost had the chance to get Mystical Ninja 2 as a 7th birthday present, but the family friend who was buying was worried I'd find it too strange, so I had to settle for Rugrats Treasure Hunt instead. But as for this game, loved it. Not my favourite N64 game ever, but my favourite of the ones I've played for this channel so far. I've had a great time every time I've played it.